today South Africa celebrates freedom, and we also commemorate the first democratic post-apartheid election today. Let's go down memory lane now and look at the significance of the elections 27 years on with former IEC chairperson Dr. Brigalia Bam, who speaks to us now. Dr. Bam, thank you very much for your time. I would like to just give you this opportunity to present a balanced picture for us of the successes and failures of the democratic state since 1994. What can you tell us?
Oh, that's a tall order. I would prefer not to use the word failure at this stage, because 27 years is a very short time in terms of trying to reconstruct a nation like us, and also trying to find a form of social cohesion, and also struggling for us to have common values. And so I would rather say it's a struggle, it's a failure, and rather than failure, let's just say and use the word mistake. Don't you think so? I think mistake then makes us feel that we have something that we can change, we are going to learn something, and yet a failure makes us feel we are doomed forever. It's been an exciting journey. In many ways difficult to measure it, because the freedom of your being, your dignity, you can't measure. You can't measure those things. They are very abstract. But these 27 years, let's leave out for now a few minutes what it means to us just as human beings. Your recognition that you are a person, your recognition that you are also a person who has a country that God gave you. Just for you to recognize the fact that the sun will rise and no one will violate you because you are not carrying a pass. To know that if you have a relative somewhere, in an urban area, as it used to be in the olden days, you can always visit the sick. You can always go and bury the dead. There are a lot of those experiences of really the humanness, of the being of the humanness. Yes, Kolani, there is no doubt is that we were all hoping that we will be able, all of us, to have the basic necessities: food, shelter, education, because it's key. And these are the things that most of us were hoping to change. But we were not aware, and we didn't have, we had a vision and ambition, and we knew what we wanted. But we didn't have a kind of a model that we could follow of trying to dismantle the very deep structures, attitudes of years, not attitudes just only of apartheid. And so these 27 years have been very difficult, because you have people of my generation who were voting for the first time in their 60s. And then you have a lot of people who are in power who had experienced a different South Africa, a different world, where they were really the ones who were recognized, they were the ones whose humanity was recognized, they were the ones who owned land, who owned all the mineral resources. And so these changes that we all have to make, and also dealing with the structures. Always we have to remember, all of us, difficult though it is, that, you know, this economy was never designed, even by the colonial government, And then apartheid followed, Kolani. And this economy was never intended to benefit these millions and millions of people that we are.
Let me interrupt you there, Dr. Bam.
And so it then puts us in a strange way. And for us, yes.
All right, thank you. Let me interrupt you because I'd like for us to have a bit of a robust conversation this morning. And I take issue with your statement that says these are not failures, they are mistakes. How do you tell that to a South African who listened last night, and I cannot describe what they may have been feeling, but certainly what I was feeling is just anger. How do you describe a situation where here's a former minister who at the time was the minister walking around with bags of money stolen, allegedly, from the very government, and this money is given to him by members of a family who clearly took it upon themselves, as is being investigated by the Zondo Commission, that they were going to appoint certain people, whether it be in state-owned entities or indeed even government. But I use my words carefully because these matters are under investigation. So here he is, walking around with bags of money to Sandton to buy himself suits. Contrast that with the people that we find in Zandspruit today. They are at a well, scooping water in order to use that water for drinking, washing, and what have you. And you can see that that water is muddy. They live on a farm. I put it to you that that is not abstract. It's a reality of many South Africans.
Kolani, I know. But Kolani, you must bear in mind that we cannot generalize, because there are individuals in the world in which we live who are greedy. There are individuals who have no ethics, something called moral ethics, whatever, however you interpret that to do. The people who have never in their lives been in a position to differentiate between good, just good, and good and bad. The people, and we can't change, you're talking about individuals, we can't change, who have no conscience. We say in my language, akasena sazela. It means if you do something bad, you don't regret. You don't feel, oh, I have done something, I have disgraced myself, I've disgraced my parents, I've disgraced my community. And what you are describing now is an individual under other influences around him, big influences of a society, of some people who have put materialism as really an altar that we are worshipping. And so that really is it. And we cannot say we give up because in our community, in our leadership, we have 30 people who have been stealing money. We have 40 people who have been stealing money to make sure that they are rich, to make sure that they find happiness, to make sure that they have a chance to drive 5 cars. I don't know when they drive 5 cars. And we shouldn't do that and give up and say we are giving up on humanity, because there are many more others. There are many more others, some known to us, the others unknown, who also have, in these 27 years, really been working very hard. with all the ethics they could, with all the values they could, to do the right thing. And we mustn't give up. We mustn't give up, because there will always be people who do these things. And I am delighted and happy that these things have come to the open, because many people will now know that there are things you simply don't do. You know, you tell yourself, and you tell your own children, and you tell that I can only go this far and not any further.
Yeah.
And that's why in my language, which we understand, you talk of the devil, that you know your whole being is taken over by Satanism, where there is no good in one. Failure is really, yes, failure, but I think some are trying, some people are trying. It's not working. It's not working.
Let me come in there.
Every aspect. There are things that are not working. Our people are starving.
Let me come in there, Dr. Bam. You know, just moments ago, we saw pictures of President Cyril Ramaphosa. He's just arrived in the Free State, Botshabelo to be exact, and that's where the national celebrations are going to be. And it's quite poignant in that this year is also going to see local government elections taking place in October, and the state of our municipalities is in a deplorable state. I don't have to describe that to you, Dr. Bam. As someone who chaired the IEC for many, many years, you know, when Madiba, I think he addressed the nation in 1995, on the very same day, he used the words New Dawn, and we know that the mantra of the current president is that of trying to revive that new dawn. Do you think that the people of South Africa, hearing the stories that are coming out of the Zondo Commission, they should really be hoping for a new dawn? Are things changing for the better, particularly around corruption?
We mustn't give hope. You know, it's amazing how, how we lived, those of my generation. And at the worst of times, when our people in this nation were really tortured in prison, at a time, when people, things we never thought we would ever see in our lives, and to see people who were going to be hung or hang, whatever is the word in English past tense. A time when women and men, mostly men, were away from their homes for over 20 years. And we couldn't move. The humiliation, yes, it was not the humiliation that we went through. I belong to the generation that was already in 1948 when it all started. We're going through a form of slavery, of humiliation of our people. And I can describe it to you in terms of where these things were known. And we never gave up. We never said, it will always be like this forever, amen. That is why people were prepared to sacrifice their lives, Kolani. That's why people were prepared to go and do certain things, even at that time of a time of pain and humiliation. People didn't give up. And for many of us to celebrate, that day, Kolani, I call it, it's not a celebration of freedom, it's a celebration of something beyond our imagination. People don't give up. We can't, because we are in this state, shocking state, give up. And what we should do, most of us, is how do we try to change the system? And how do we begin to find new ways of doing things? Is there a way? I keep thinking that one of the things we should do, as an example, is that we have to change the electoral system. that you don't go and steal the money as an individual, and you are not accountable to anybody. And you know very well that when you've taken that money, which is supposed to service the community, nothing is going to happen to you. Now, what kind of a society? It means that we have to go back to the drawing board to say, can we find another way in which people who are given the power are accountable to somebody, that there is a sense of shame, that you know that if you do something wrong, you are not going to be protected, you are going to go to jail.
So can I interrupt you there, Dr. Bam? So can I interrupt you there?
And that is really what we can do now, and the South Africans mustn't give up.
So you speak and you use the words
yes,
humiliation. I am trying to, in my mind, imagine in the lead up to these local government elections, as you will know, the ANC and every other party, they're going to probably be doing door-to-door visits to people's homes. How should people respond to Malusi Gigaba saying, I would like for you to come and give your vote to the ANC, knowing what has been said about him by his wife?
Kolani, you must remember that not everybody is going to give up. People will know that we have to continue to govern this country. People will know that the systems that are in place, the constitution, the legislation, there has to be institutions that will continue to work, no matter whether they will steal the billions and take them to faraway lands for the comfort of other people, is that there will be people who will continue to build this nation. People are not going to give up. This is our nation. This nation belongs to the generations to come. We have a responsibility now to correct and try and correct. I know that people, and some might be too angry to go and vote, but some people might say, let me find a way of creating an institution, and maybe something will happen to the African National Congress or any other party, that they will find a way of dealing with people who are corrupt rather than people to be protected. If we begin to lose hope, the state can't fail. South Africans, we can't fail, having been isolated, excluded for hundreds of years from governance, from running our country, and then be discouraged after 27 years because of few thieves that happen to be members of a political party. We mustn't lose hope, and really we mustn't lose hope. Yeah. And I know that no matter what we do, the political parties have the powers to decide whom they want to govern, and if they decide as political parties that they are going to bring the thieves, who have no credibility, who have no ethics, who have nothing, it's unfortunate because that's our electoral system. That gives the power to the party that they will protect their people even if they've done wrong.
Dr. Bam.
That's how we are structured. And how do we change that?
Yeah. Dr. Bam, 2 quick points before I wrap up my conversation with you. There are 2 issues that remain intractable in our society: gender-based violence and femicide. The president dubbed it the second pandemic last year after COVID-19. South Africa, Dr. Bam, was dubbed the rape capital. That was back in the early 90s. What is going wrong here, and how do we fix that?
Our family values, the transition the transition of, this is a short time in terms of the existence, the phase, what I call it, the phase of change, has hit us very hard. Hit us hard that the expectations that were very high on everything, that everybody is going to be wealthy, and everybody is going to be very wealthy, and that the money will make you very, very happy. I'm exaggerating a little bit the way I'm talking about it. And so there is so much anger. There's too much anger. There's too much feeling of people not successful. And so you have to get your anger and your violence to those people who are nearest to you. And what we must deal with is, why so much anger? What is it that we haven't done as grandmothers and as mothers to these sons and grandsons of ours? Why so much anger? What is it that suddenly there is no respect for human beings? This word respect, what happened to it? Did we perhaps cultivate people who were just going to be good social media people, who were going to know everything about technology, and we left out some of the things that are very basic of respecting another person, of knowing that human life is important. Life, I don't know. I also, but there's too much anger every corner you turn. It can't be like this. And we have to deal with that. And it can't be that we blame everybody now. I notice that it's blaming everybody. People are blaming government, and they're blaming the police, so we are now putting blame on everybody. And I think that all of us in society, all of us, no matter who we are, whether we are parents, grandparents, we begin, all of us, to go back to the drawing board of helping each other, of helping the growing generation on respect for other human beings. And to me, that is fundamental. Because if you have no respect and you don't honor life, you have no respect for self, you can't have respect for the other person. It seems too difficult, but that's how all societies live. You can't rely entirely on sending everybody to prison, and that we have now resolved the problem of everybody. We are going to lock everybody up, and we'll put in 2 million people in prisons, and then we're building more prisons. I don't think that's going to be a solution for us to deal with this problem. I do not know. I do not know myself what other people do in other countries. I do not know how other people cultivate this kindness. No matter how angry you are, no matter what, you say to yourself, I do not wish to harm another person. It's simple as all that. I do not need to harm another person. I do not wish to kill another person. And that's what we're dealing with.
Dr. Bam,
And how do we do that?
As I wrap up my conversation with you, I'd like to deal with the issue of race relations in the country. At the moment, before court are 5 people, 5 farm owners who are accused of murdering 2 farm dwellers. Before that, you had a situation where a farm manager was allegedly killed by 2 people who are assumed to live in that area. And that also was a moment where the country was shook in terms of how we relate to one another. Again, how do we solve this particular challenge? Because, as I said, it remains an intractable issue.
We must learn, as I said, Polani, we have made mistakes. 27 years ago, we assumed that we are now one nation, everybody can go and vote, and that everybody will be recognized as a South African citizen, and everybody has freedom, and everybody will have whatever they need. And these were assumptions, and we didn't want to deal with the problem that racism and racial attitudes will not change overnight just because we have a wonderful constitution and that we have abolished all the apartheid laws. The first thing, I feel strongly, we must first admit to ourselves that we are a racist society. The minute we admit that publicly and say we are a racist society, we don't have to be explaining why we are a racist society. We don't need that, because we can go through many nations who also are going through racism. Racism is a global phenomenon. It's not something, and I'm not trying to justify it, but our situation is worse because for years and years and years, it was part of the teaching, it was a way of life, it was even at some point justified theologically. So we have come with this history, and we cannot in 27 years try and pretend that it's all good. All racial attitudes are gone. And that those of us who were deprived for a very long time are now wonderful, loving people. And we know that those who own land and own other things and have money and beautiful cars, overnight are going to gladly share all their wealth with us.
Dr. Bam,
and
as you
speak,
and I'm sorry to cut in.
We are a racist society. How do we begin?
Yeah. As you speak, and I'm really sorry to interrupt you, as you speak, the president of the nation, I think he is at the moment possibly, I think they're about to sing the national anthem. He's just arrived at the venue, and I seem to recall him at the height of the murder of this farm manager, and I want us to wrap things up now. I seem to recall him saying that, no, South Africa is not failing this issue of race relations. In fact, we are progressing in trying to make sure that we live with each other harmoniously. But every time the country experiences yet another issue that attempts to derail us in as far as race relations are concerned, is the president wrong?
Well, the president can never be wrong, but I think as we deal with our racism, just one last sentence, we need to deal with the economic transformation. And I'm not using that word in the jargon. I'm using it is that until we find a new way ourselves of dealing with the gap in this country, of the inequalities, as long as we haven't dealt with that seriously as a major, major responsibility, we are going to continue to have problem of racism. And now we are moving